I went to Torquay, which was on my birthday. I think it was the 9th. And obviously Higgy scored a great header. We'll win 1-0. So the bus on the back was a bit more jeery. And I had missed calls on my phone. And I was thinking, like, my agent had rang. And he was like, that's your last game. That's your last game today. And I was like, what? I was like, obviously, I'm on the bus. Like, the manager let me have like a few drinks. It was my birthday. So, like, we're sitting at the back of the bus. And he was like, that's your last game today. And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, I'm here at the end of the season. We've still got like 3, 4 more games left. He went, nah, nah, nah. He's like, I've had a call off Hartlepool. He was like, they're calling you back. They're calling you back. And I was like, no, I'm going back to the hotel and then I'm going like home when I get back to Liverpool. And he was like, nah, Scotty, something's up, something's up. He was like, they're going to recall you. And I was like, what? Like, what's going on? So I remember we got the Sunday off to recover. I remember going in on the Monday for like a recovery session, and it wasn't the manager that spoke to it. It was what was the Irish coach, the
Now
first
you're
team
testing me.
coach,
Quinn.
Quinn. Yeah, so
James
Quinny
Quinn.
pulled us to one side and went, Scotty, he was like, are you not happy here? And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, well, we're hearing that you're going back to Hartlepool. And I was like, listen, I told my agent this weekend I've got no intentions of going back to Hartlepool. I was like, I'm here at the end of the season, but I was like, at the same time, I've been here for like 4 games now and I haven't started. I was like, that's not what I come here for. I was like, I could have sat on the bench in League Two if I wanted to. I was like, the whole point of us coming here was to play. And he was like, yeah, yeah, but he's like, we've won more than we've lost since you've been here. And I was like, yeah, yeah, that's fair enough. But I was like, I do want to be here. So anyway, it was like, we finished training. The manager came and spoke to us. He was like, Scotty, he was like, Craig Hignett won't answer my phone. He was like, the secretary up, it was Michael. He was like, Michael wasn't the secretary, Michael Kinsella. He was just upstairs. He kind of like looked after the players a little bit. And he was like, go upstairs and see Michael. So Michael had said, Scotty, some sort of letters come through from Hartlepool just to saying that they'd like to recall you. And I said, well, I thought they didn't have a recall clause in my contract. And he was like, no, I think they must do. So there was a lot of confusion as to what was happening. So the manager said, get yourself up the road, go into Hartlepool and find out what's going on because no one's answering the phone. So I goes up to Hartlepool. They were off on the Wednesday, so I turned up for training on the Thursday. I got in nice and early. I went to see the physio Buster in the morning, and he's like, what you doing back? And I was like, well, Tranmere, I got a letter to say I've got to come back because they're recalling us. And he was like, oh, what? And I was like, what? Is someone playing I was like, is someone playing a prank on us here? I was like, what's going on? So the manager didn't come until the afternoon. And he was like, how do you feel? And I was like, what do you mean, how do I feel? He was like, well, do you want to come back? And I was like, well, do you want us back? And he was like, well, it's up to you. And I said, like, well, we kind of don't have anything to play for. And I was like, I'm on the verge of like, I kept thinking to myself, I was like, I could go to Wembley with Tranmere here. I was like, so realistically, like, I'm quite happy down there. You know what I mean? Keep grafting to make sure I play and get some goals before the end of the season. And he was like, yeah, right. That's fine, that's fine. And I think Hartlepool were playing on that night against Carlisle away. And he said, come tonight with the boys and watch the boys, and then you can head back down the road after Carlisle. So I was like, right, sound. So I remember after training, I went back home, I picked up my little brother, and we both drove to the Carlisle game. So I watched the Carlisle game against Hartlepool. And I was like, right, we'll go back down to Liverpool. So I turned back up at Tranmere the next morning, expecting to train, and the gaffer was like, nah, Scotty, Hartlepool recalled you back. They've requested you back. So I go all the way back up. Now I'm starting to like lose my head, thinking like, what the hell is going on? Like, what is going on here? And then the Hartlepool secretary finds out that the way my loan was worded, I can't be involved in the Hartlepool team until the end of March or May, sorry. I wasn't available to be selected for Hartlepool until the last game of the season against Plymouth. So I just literally trained with the lads at Hartlepool that weren't getting picked for 3, 4 weeks. Just running on a Saturday, training during the week, going in to run on a Saturday. In Hartlepool, we got tanked every week. And I remember Craig Hignett came to us on the Friday before the last game of the season, and we had Plymouth. Obviously, National League had finished obviously the week earlier. Tranmere missed out. I was obviously always watching and still speaking to Jack and everyone, and I was gutted because I thought, like, who knows if I had played, like, if I had came off the bench, made a few more impacts, would we got a couple of more points, would I got myself a couple of goals? Like, you never know what's going to happen. But I remember the day before the last game of the season, I went into Craig Hignett's office after training. It was a boiling hot day. We trained on the Thursday, sorry, and I was like, right, it's the last game of the season on Saturday. I'm available to be picked. I was like, am I coming or am I off? Am I going home? And I remember his words. He said, if you sign this contract, you can come with the squad tomorrow. And I looked at it and it was no different to the one in January. And I just said, I'm not going to sign that. So he's like, well, if you don't sign this, then I'm going to have to put out that you're going to get released. So I just said in the office, I shook his hand and I went, no problem, sound, that's all. I was like, all the best. And I remember leaving the training ground on that day on the Thursday, and I hadn't even got home, and there was an article out in the Hartlepool Mail saying Hartlepool release. I think it was me, Harry Worley, Kudus, and someone else. They were like the 3 or 4 boys that I had just been like running with for a couple of weeks that hadn't played any games for the first team basically. And I just thought like that's the lowest you could have stooped to. Like, you know what I mean? I wasn't being like arrogant or whatever, but I thought like the year before I've scored goals to keep you in a job and to keep you in the league, to keep the club in the league. And I was like, as quick as that, if you don't sign this, you're getting released. So that's what went out, and that's when I thought like you start learning how ruthless football can be. So it's a case of like, was it an admin error that affected my loan in the first place? Was that people being a bit, what's the word? You can't really say jealous. Was that people trying to mess us around because I wouldn't sign a contract at Hartlepool? But ultimately, that season went to tatters. It had the potential of being so good. I mean, Hartlepool finished, I think we finished 16th or 17th. So, again, underachieved for what the club wanted, but probably overachieved compared to the position that we're in the year before. And Tranmere missing out on the playoffs was not meant to happen. And do I believe that if I had stayed, that we would have probably finished in the playoffs? Yeah, because having that extra striker around, and you never know, maybe it would have give the people that were starting like another little lift like I had done in the few games that I had been there.